What happens when you realize you want more life and not necessarily a more impressive life? That sounds maybe kind of strange, but the reality is you can be grateful for the life that you have and you can still want more. And what I mean by that is it can be confusing when your life looks good on paper or nothing is catastrophically wrong or you aren't necessarily miserable. You have plenty of things that you're grateful for in your life. Uh, you know that other people would love to be in your circumstances. You know that you're privileged, but no matter what, you still have this quiet feeling inside that you don't think the life that you're currently leading is the one that you want to keep living. And I wrote down a question that I'll read off here because I want to make sure I get it right. I wrote down, how do you know whether you actually want a different life or or if you're just having a bad week? It's a great question. We all know that life can throw us curveballs and it can be just stressful some weeks and wonderful the next. But I think the reality is when things become a continuous problem, that's when it's time to start looking at, is this really the life that I want to keep leading and what needs to change? I bring this all up because this is my day 3 of 100 of trying to post continuously, not even trying, I'm going to post continuously for 100 days. And the goal is to get monetized and give myself options because I got laid off and I don't want to go back to corporate. I'm choosing not to. And we're going to go through some of the reasons why I'm choosing to completely shift my life, go out on my own, and use the skills that I've gained over the years to build something that is mine. So I wrote, as always, by the way, I have notes. I love notes. I always think things through before I get to these videos. So if you see me glancing over, you can't see my computer, but it is here helping us out. So I want to say, or ask another question, I should say, which I also wrote down. It says, if you could wake up tomorrow and nobody would judge you for changing your life, what would you change? That doesn't necessarily have to be your job. For me, multiple times in my life, that has been my job. I've worked corporate for at least, I would say, around 10 years of my life, which is a lot. Maybe it's not a lot, but it's basically been most of my adult career since leaving university, and it's very, very taxing to work in corporate. There's been many, many times where I just knew it wasn't for me. We'll get into some of the reasons why I knew later, but all that to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be your job. That's something you would change. It could be the place you live. It could be a relationship you're in. It could be the way that you're spending your time. Of course, that we spend a lot of time with our jobs, but it could also be the way you're spending your time outside of your job. There could be other obligations in your life. It could be what you're doing on your weekends. We only get 2 days that are theoretically ours if we work a 9 to 5 typical job. So they're very, very important. Maybe you don't think anything's wrong. It's possible. You could love your life. I don't know. If your answer is nothing, I think that's great. Please impart your knowledge on the rest of us for how you managed to build that life. But all that to be said, I think my computer just decided to go a little bit darker than anticipated. So bear with me here. If I can get it to come back up. There we go. Sorry for that. I don't edit these out, by the way. They just are. They're me rambling my thoughts off and working through the things that I have worked through the past almost a year after my layoff and really sitting down to decide what I wanted moving forward. So let's wrap that segment up by saying I really think there's a difference between being unhappy with your life and realizing that the life that you're living, the life that you're leading, isn't the life that you would choose. I'll let you sit with that one. Feel free to rewind it 10 seconds and listen to that again. So I wrote down 5 questions they can be uncomfortable. I think they're just really more enlightening questions. So let's start with the first one. Kind of piggybacking off of the last video, my day 2 video. If I could start over, would I choose this again? For me, that's a really hard question because I wouldn't be where I am and who I am without all the past decisions I've made. So on one hand, I would say no, I would make those choices again. On the other hand, I think that I would go back and I would certainly make some different decisions. I would go back and I would definitely stand up for myself more. I would fight for my career more. I would push my fears aside more and try and fail forward and not be afraid. I've spent so many, I guess, years, sadly to say, being afraid of trying new things or overthinking things. Maybe it's not even, maybe the overthinking is the result of the fear, instead of just doing and having faith that it's going to work out and that I have nothing to lose for trying. I've held myself back. So I would make the same choices again, uh, because I wouldn't be sitting here with this knowledge and experience had I not, but I would definitely make some different choices in between, I guess, those life decisions that I made. Um, so would I choose it again? Yes. Would I make different decisions in the process? Yes, also as well. So that leads me into my next question that I wrote down, and that is what parts of life, my life specifically, that I actually love. And there's so many things that I love, which is wonderful. And my corporate 9 to 5 job really gave me the opportunities to do the things I love. However, the things I love were difficult to do because I was so burned out in my job. I didn't have the energy or the mental capacity to do those things. Or if I was able to do them, I didn't have the mental capacity and the energy to really truly enjoy them and be present in the moment. It's very hard to disconnect from a 9 to 5, especially one that you're passionate about. And that, of course, bleeds over into the other aspects of your life. So I wrote down a couple bullet points of things that maybe you'd love, or things you can think about that you love. I wrote down your friends, your city, your partner, your house, your career, your hobbies, or your freedom. And of course, there's 3 different freedoms that people focus on: your financial freedom, your location freedom, and your time freedom. Maybe you have a lot of one and not a lot of the other. When I was in my corporate job, I was fully remote. I had a lot of location freedom. I was making good money, so I had a lot of financial freedom, but I didn't have a lot of time freedom because 9 to 5, and I was in a consulting role, which meant some weeks it was more than a 9 to 5. And that's not including the costs of being mentally drained, being burned out, and not having the energy to do things. So replay that list. Think about that list. Think about the things that you would keep. Think about the things that you would not necessarily let go of, but maybe spend less time and energy on or with, and start shifting your life and focusing on those things or those people. I'm not saying blow up your life, and maybe you need a total reset. If you do, by all means, move to that other country or that other city and reset and make a YouTube channel over it or about it, because that would be really cool to watch. But most of us, you don't need to blow up your life. It's just really sitting and seriously thinking through what you love, what do you want to focus on, because life is short, time is short, and we need to spend more time doing the things we love. Get off my soapbox. Moving on. So I wrote down a third question, and my third one is, what am I doing because I want to? And what am I doing because I think I'm supposed to? Now, that gets into some sticky points, I guess you could say, because obviously the things you are supposed to be doing, or you should be doing, those are things like, I guess I should say they're things you should be doing because they're necessities. They're things that keep a roof over your head, food on the table. Making money, of course, is one of those. Focusing on your health is something that we should be doing, and we should, it's not just that you're supposed to do it. You really should do it. But there's other things that are not as critical, perhaps, that I also wrote down. And they're things that I am 100% guilty of. And I'll give some examples of them as we go through. Not all of them would pertain to me, but some of them do. So I'll give the examples there. And I hope it resonates. I should want a promotion. I worked for a company that for a long time. Most of the time that I was there, I fought very, very hard for the promotion. I checked all the boxes. I did everything right. I talk a little bit about it in some of my earlier videos. You'd have to probably scroll back, but they are there. Point is, I spent so much time and effort and energy focusing on doing everything I needed, everything that was required, checking all the boxes for the promotion, and I didn't get it. I burned myself out so badly that I didn't even know which way was up. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I truly was delirious. That's how tired I was when I went for that promotion, when I had to finally put together the case and meet the deadline. I was coming back from 3 weeks off. Other people had had all this time to prepare. I didn't, and I lost anyway. I have never been so upset in my life. And it wasn't even that I was upset at the company per se, or the people. I was upset at the system. I was upset at myself for putting so much time and energy into something that, quite frankly, at the end of the day, did not matter. Okay, I didn't get the promotion, I didn't get the title, I didn't get the money. It wasn't about the money. I really wanted the title to reflect the work I did. But the reality is that job is now gone. And all those skills are still mine and still with me. And that is more valuable than that stupid promotion. So, a few other examples I wrote down. I should want to buy a house. I should want stability. Depending on who you are, I think we all prioritize stability, but I should want to settle down. I should be further along by now. That last one's really hard. We all are guilty of comparing, and I think we all forget that other people look at our lives and compare themselves to us and want things that we have, and vice versa. But then I have to ask you, having listed all those, who said you're supposed to want those things? Who said those things are required? Was it someone in your network? Was it someone in your family? A friend? A mentor? Is it the culture that you were born into, that you were raised in? Is it something that you put on yourself? And if it is, where did that come from? We're all born blank slates. Why do we suddenly put so much pressure on ourselves for things that, like a promotion, don't really matter? Moving on to my fourth question I wrote down. I wrote down, if nothing changed, would I want this life 5 years from now? I'm outside and I'm going to try and keep this kosher. If you made it this far, you're going to see a little bit more into my private personality here. But the reality is absolutely the F not. Absolutely, hands down, I would not want the life that I was leading before I left corporate 5 years from now. And looking back, that is so funny, because when I took my last job, I said 5 years. I said, I'm going to give myself 5 years. I'm going to really get ingrained. I'm going to get promoted. I'm going to, make the money that I need to really put some retirement away to hopefully retire. Really, all the things I'm supposed to do. Right. And I will tell you right now, absolutely the F not. If I could go back and shake myself and tell myself to open my eyes, I would 100% do it. That life, quite literally, would have been severely detrimental to my health. So it's a very powerful question. It's a very powerful question to ask yourself and contemplate. Journal, record, whatever works for you. Really think it through. There are some severe consequences to living a life that is just not aligned and not what you want, truly, because it's not necessarily you hate your current life. I didn't hate my life. I was very, very fortunate. In many ways, I loved my life, but it was not worth the cost. Not to me. Maybe it is to some people. Everybody's different, but to me, it was absolutely not. So it was something that I didn't want to continue indefinitely. And I think that's a very different question. Not question, I just think that's very different than slightly lost my train of thought there. That happens, but I'll just say, I think it's very different to not want something indefinitely, um, and then really, I guess, to stay in it. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. I think there was something very it's supposed to be good, and it ended up not being good. Here we are. We're gonna move on. Like I said, I don't edit these. This is just like off the cuff, based on the notes that I've put down in preparation for the video. So it's kind of fun to see where it goes. Here's another interesting one that I think a lot of people don't consider, and it's certainly something that I didn't consider until I was furloughed. It wasn't even the layoff that I went through last year that triggered this. It was the furlough. And I've got some stories. I'll list out the things that I wrote down first, and then I'll go through and tell a few stories that I hope resonate with some people. So the fifth question I wrote down was, what am I afraid I'll lose if I change? Again, rewind it 10 seconds and replay that one. It's a question I think more people should sit with. So the things I wrote down bullet points. They're like 8, 9 bullet points. And they say, my first one I said was money, security, identity, approval, relationships, status, familiarity, and the feeling that you're doing life correctly. Yikes. It's very default. So many of those things are so default. We're robotic as the things that we're taught. So things that were raised, especially me as a millennial, I straddle the two career worlds. I straddled it before, where you went to school, you got a job, you stuck with that job, you retired from that job. And I also straddle the world where I saw the rise of technology and social media and YouTube. And there's so many more different paths and options and careers that were not even thought of when I was growing up, and some of which were not even a thing when I was in university. I'm a tangent just a slight bit, but I will never forget my undergraduate keynote speaker's speech. And he said, I think I just felt a raindrop. I'm going to get distracted. If it starts raining, well, it starts raining. He said in his keynote speech to us that when we started university, tweeting was still something the birds did. Because when I started university, Twitter didn't exist. Sit with that for a moment. I'm going to give one example in case the heavens do open up and it starts to rain. Oh my gosh, today has been a day. Focus, Kaylin, focus. Relationships. When I was furloughed, I really understood the meaning of when things go wrong, you find out who your friends are. I cannot tell you how many people that I thought were my good friends who would be there to support me through everything, no matter what it was, vanished, gone, haven't heard from them. I stopped getting invited to Christmas parties. I had one friend who we were so close. I mean, I considered this person family, ghosted me, didn't speak to me for 7 months. And the funny thing about it, looking back, is when I was furloughed, I was actually visiting them. And I was so grateful that this all happened with them there, and I had their support. And they, at the time, in person, they really went out of the way to keep me distracted and make the best of it. Gone. Vanished. In so many ways, I lost everything. Obviously, I didn't lose everything, but on paper, I lost everything. I lost my income. I lost my status as some big corporate employee. I lost the client. I lost all those things that were supposed to matter. And people disappeared, vanished, gone. People in my network that said they would help me, never heard back. Wild. It's wild to me to think about that. And it wasn't something that I ever anticipated losing if I chose to walk away from a corporate life. Obviously, I was furloughed. I was laid off. I didn't choose those things. But I know that my decisions and my life was leading towards this moment with me sitting here now in front of you, creating a life that is mine, that I am in control of. And I'm not sure those people would still be here. if I had chosen to leave corporate of my own volition. I could go down the rabbit hole. I could sit here and try and psychoanalyze and make up reasons and explanations for their behavior, but it's something that I didn't anticipate losing. Wild, absolutely wild. I think most people, when they think of a change like this, they think of losing the money and the security. They don't think of the people that they may also potentially lose. Um, so all that to say, I think sometimes the thing is that's keeping us in what I like to call like a default robotic life isn't that we don't know what we want, is that we know what we want and we're afraid of what it will cost us. Sit with that one for a second too. It's that we know what we want and we're afraid of what it will cost us. Yeah, it's a heavy one. And it's something that none of us have an answer to because it's going to look different for every single person as they go through a change like this in their life. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a job change. You could decide suddenly you don't want to do your hobby anymore. Decide you don't want to live in a city anymore. Yeah. So it's a powerful one. And all that to be said, this is my day 3 of 100 of designing my life, designing a life that is mine. So I wrote down a couple different things again as well. I don't think you have to look at your life and decide what your entire life has to look like. Do this piece by piece. If you're one of those people that loves to just like blow it all up and start over, more power to you. Again, you should start a YouTube channel because I'd watch it. I'm not that kind of person, so I'd love to see you do it. But I did write down a few things to consider. You could ask yourself, what do you want more of? And on the flip side, what do you want less of? Maybe it's something that you want to try. What's something that you've always said you want to try and you never had? Could be a great place to start. Maybe you should ask yourself what you're willing to trade. Are you in a corporate job like I was, or you're stable and you're comfortable? Are you willing to trade that to be uncomfortable for a while to maybe have a greater life of abundance on the other side? Think about it. You never know. I don't know. I mean, for all I know, I'll get to day 100 and nothing will have changed. I'll move on. Go back to corporate. That's not happening. But you never know. You never know until you try. You should try. I'm going to leave you with a final one, though. And I'll elaborate a little bit from my own experience on it as well. But the last question I'll leave you with is, what am I no longer willing to trade? For me, I am no longer willing to trade my time for money, my health, to build somebody else's dream, to handle emergencies that are not emergencies. I don't know how to tell you, but corporate doesn't care about you. Someone else can do your job. You are replaceable and you have the right to be out of office. And you being out of office and not handling it till Monday is not an emergency. Don't call me. Don't bug me on the weekend. If I'm off, if I'm clocked out, I'm clocked out. Not willing to trade that anymore. Oh, I could go on, but I will not, because this is not about hating on corporate. This is not about hating on anything specifically. It's not really sitting down and, funny enough, getting uncomfortable with uncomfortable questions and really looking at your life through a microscope and making the changes that you want. You don't have to reason it to anybody. You don't have to justify it to anybody. Make the changes in your life that you want because it is your life. It is. It's like it plopped on the head by a raindrop. I'm so thankful the heavens have not opened yet. Like, there's a lot of tech out right now that would be destroyed. I swear I'll wrap this up because I do not want to jinx it and get poured on by the clouds above. So I think, in summary, that last question is really interesting. I'll repeat it one more time. What am I no longer willing to trade? Sit with it, think about it, write it down. I don't know, put it under your pillow. I don't know. You do you. What I'm trying to say is, designing a life isn't just about adding things to your life. Sometimes it's about deciding what you're no longer willing to sacrifice. For me, that's everything I listed. It's also things I listed on last video. No longer putting travel in the margins, dance in the margins, time with friends and family in the margins. I don't want to ask permission from a manager to take time off to go live my life. And I'm not going to sacrifice it anymore. So maybe, hope that wasn't too much of a downer. Felt a little funky there towards the end. But the heavens are starting to open up and rain. So I'm going to head inside and I will catch you on day 4 out of 100.